Hey, what is up, Conroe? This is Rick TRC. You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KZZWLP Conroe and 106.1 on KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Extension Hour. I'm Amy Ressler, County Extension Agent, Family and Community Health. And of course, this is the Extension Hour, all about Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, where we promote our people, our programs, and our partnerships. And I use lots of P's. But we have some awesome people here with us today. We have two of our master gardeners. And I think like you guys are, I would consider you some superstar master gardeners because like you're legendary.
Well, that's a great.
Right? How's that for an introduction?
That's a pretty good.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Yeah.
All right. No pressure.
No
No
pressure.
pressure at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and introduce yourself. Bob, tell us about you.
Bob Daly. I've been a master gardener for about 11 years now, and I enjoy it very much. I do a lot of volunteer work and go out and visit a lot of residences. So anyway, that's me.
Okay, and then we have Linda Crum.
I've been a master gardener since 1996. That's 20 plus years.
Do math.
And people assume I know everything. That's just because I've been around so long, but I don't. But I enjoy it. I volunteer every week with at the gardens on Wednesday and phones on Friday. Morning, I'll answer phones.
And I think the great thing about the Master Gardener Association is there's like 400, there's over 400, 450 now, so including the
We're
most
one of the
recent insert.
largest groups in the state.
Right, right. And so if one of you don't know the answer, somebody in the group does.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then Linda
And
mentioned.
if we don't, we'll lie.
Yeah, and then, figure it out later. You guys don't lie very often.
No, we
Because
haven't.
you usually do know.
Yes, that's true.
And there's lots of resources. So we have the phone room, so people can call up, ask questions. There's always someone during business hours in the phone room, so they can answer any kind of questions that come in. And we get some odd questions that come in sometimes.
And some really good questions
Yeah,
too. And people
yeah.
drop in too, don't they?
Yes, we had a man drop in this morning.
Yeah, what was he interested in?
Well, he had just laid some new sod, a lawn, and he wanted to know if he could roll it with this heavy roller. And so we discussed that. And told him it wasn't a very good idea to be rolling sod that didn't have its roots put down, but
like
to use a
brand new.
lightweight roller.
Okay. Well, that is an excellent segue into the topic that we want to talk about today. So, summertime, people are out taking care of their lawns. So, lawn care is a big issue among homeowners, and one of the things that you do get a lot of questions about. And so, we wanted to talk just a little bit about caring for your lawn this summer. And, I mean, year round, because, we have the weather around here gives us green grass for quite some time.
Sure, yeah.
There's not a very short brown season around here, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. One of the things I've seen that's kind of prevalent all over this area, all over Montgomery County, is that people put grass down, they put their lawns, their turf down, but they forget about what's under the turf. And I've seen so many bad soils. I'm sure Linda has too. The soil is rock hard and it's dead. So people.
Or it's sandy and
Or
doesn't
it's
hold
sandy,
water.
and
Yes.
it doesn't hold water.
Right.
So people need to start amending their soil, I think, and increasing the microbial life in the soil, and adding organic material in their soil, so that it's rich and full of microlives, I should say, microbial life.
The good stuff that it needs to grow, right?
The good
to keep
stuff.
it alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I tell people if they don't get their soil right, they're not going to have a pretty lawn, they're not going to have a good vegetable garden, then their shrubs and trees are not going to survive very well. And we have very poor soils here in Montgomery County.
And you were mentioning to me earlier too about the sandy. So sometimes people will add the sand to it for drainage, but you
Right. If you have a clay soil and you think, well, I just need to add some sand to it and it'll drain better, well, that's how you make bricks, sand and
Sand and
clay.
clay,
So
yeah.
you don't want to do that. Compost is the best thing to add to soil, whether it be clay or sand.
So, and there are some very tenacious plants that will grow around and in bricks, but in general, that's not good for your lawn, right?
Right. Most of them are weeds, the ones
Yeah.
that grow around the,
Yeah, the
the
ones that we-
bricks and the concrete. Yeah.
We don't want. So tell us a little bit more about some of the things some common mistakes that you see that homeowners do with lawn care?
I see a lot of homeowners using, actually putting sod in the summertime, which is not a great idea. They should do it in the fall or the spring, where it's cooler.
So
And
ideal months.
ideal months October and let's say late March, early April.
Okay.
Those are the times I would put the soil, the lawns in. I know people have time during the summer, but it's really not the ideal time because it's so hot. And sometimes St. Augustine goes dormant in the summer when it's too hot. So only the roots are growing. So that's one of the things that I think people make a mistake about. And two, not amending the soil with compost. And I see a lot of people buying compost that's less than organic.
Okay.
Okay, there are a lot of composts out there that have what is the word? A copper arsenate in it, and that comes from ground up waste materials and stuff like that. Copper arsenate has arsenic in it, and so that's kind of a dangerous thing to have, especially for pets and children who might be tracking it into the house and stuff like that. So people need to check the quality of their compost and not just buy anything out there.
Right. And you were mentioning too about watering. Sometimes there's mistakes made with watering.
Oh,
for
yes.
lawns.
Usually people, they either overwater or underwater. And people have the idea that if I water a little bit each day, that'll be good. But actually it's not, because if they water just for a very short period of time, the water doesn't penetrate the soil very deeply. And so the root zone of that lawn stays right where the water is. They don't have to go any deeper. But if you give the lawn an inch of water at a time, that water will soak into the soil about 6 inches. And then don't water again until you see your footprints in the grass when you walk across it.
Okay.
So you're teaching that grass, if you want to find water, you got to put your roots down deep,
Okay.
and it will survive much better.
And the thing with deep roots is that the grass is much healthier. So as it has deep roots, it gets more food and more nutrients from the soil, and it makes a healthier grass. So when it will fight off things like brown patch, or I think it's large patch now,
Right.
and take all patch and things like that. Fungal diseases and bacterial diseases that are in the lawn, they're actually in the soil. But strong grass roots, which you have deep grass roots, if you water properly, like Linda says, that turf will fight off all those diseases. And I've seen it happen millions of times. Well, not millions, but thousands.
Lots.
And I'm sure Linda has too.
I have. And one thing about watering for a long period of time, some people say, well, the water starts to run off before I get an
And
inch.
then my neighbors get mad.
And that's very common if the water can't penetrate the soil very easily. And so you water until the point of runoff. This is going to require some time on you. You water to the point of runoff, stop the irrigation system, and wait, and then cycle back through until you water at the point of runoff until you get that 1 inch of water. So you'll know how to set your system. And talk about setting your system, it really should be on manual setting.
Oh, yeah.
And then activate it when it needs to be. I have neighbors right across the street. We had almost 4 inches of rain one day, and the next day their irrigation system came on. So
Because it was on an automatic system.
because they have
yeah.
it set automatically to do twice a week.
Now, there are new systems out there called smart controllers that actually tie into evapotranspiration systems that are all over the state. A&M has a bunch of them. And those systems can actually regulate the water put out on the lawn. So if it rains in a certain area, that smart system will sense that and actually turn off the irrigation system. And they're not very expensive. I mean, to me, that's the way to go because it saves a lot of time and trouble.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money, yes.
Yeah.
The water's getting more and more expensive as time goes by.
And water conservation is extremely important too. I mean, sometimes we don't think about that because it's been raining a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll always have water available. So
Exactly.
conservation
And
remains
just
important.
to touch on that, SMU just did a study about the fact that groundwater, as it decreases, causes subsidence in the top layer of soil. And so what happens is we're seeing streets cracking, foundations cracking, pipes breaking, and stuff like that as the ground falls into that vacant space that's been created by groundwater withdrawal. So we're seeing a lot more of that now too. So it behooves us to save more water because of that.
Right. Take advantage of the rain when it is here.
Exactly.
Okay, so you guys, you talked about amending the soil. So we want to get really deep roots so that it can get the nutrients that it needs. But in order to get those nutrients have to be there. And so if they're not there, then you can put that in by amending the soil, right? So
Exactly.
that's, for me, I feel like that's kind of a technical term that maybe people who work with it a lot know what it means. But like your average homeowner, like me, may not know, like amend the soil. What does that mean? So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Linda?
Well, you can amend with compost. We talked about that. And that can actually add fertility to the soil because it is rich in nutrients. And if you use the don't bag it method of mowing your lawn, leaving the grass clippings on the lawn, that can actually meet quite a bit of the nutritional requirements. As those grass clippings break down, they release the nutrients.
So that's a
into
little
the
bit like
soil.
composting without,
Right.
because sometimes when we talk about composting or putting compost on your lawn or something, people think of the, really
Adding it.
Yes, and a lot of work, like, the little stinky compost bin
right.
to get it all ready, and then you
Well, now,
spray it.
Amy, if it stinks, you're doing it
Not
wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
And then one of the things that we can talk about is that the nutrients of a plant are in their leaves, grass blades or leaves.
Right.
So when you cut the leaves, when you cut that grass, if you let it fall down, all those nutrients go back into the ground, not just the carbon from the grass blades, but everything else.
And it's the same with trees. When trees shed their leaves in the fall, if you just leave them there, then that adds a lot of nutrients and organic matter to the soil. And we see people raking up leaves, bagging them, and putting them on the curb.
Sure.
And people like me drive by and pick them up and take them home and compost them.
But not stinky compost.
It's not sticky compost. But adding additional fertility, you're going to have to go to a fertilizer.
Okay.
And I have been an organic gardener for about 20 years. And I never used chemicals very much before I became a master gardener. But when I was sitting through the classes, and my background is clinical microbiology, so we did a lot of cultures in the lab. And you culture out E. coli from a urine sample. That person's got a urinary tract infection. You treat it with this antibiotic. If he's got a sore throat, you treat it with that antibiotic. So when I heard these professors say, well, if you've got aphids, you spray them with this. And if you've got whitefly, you spray them with that. Well, that fit right into my mindset. And so I started doing that. And pretty soon, I had more pest insects in my yard than I knew what to do with. Because not only was I trying to kill pests, I was killing beneficial insects. Sure. So I had been reading Organic Gardening magazine all these years, but I figured, well, they're just a bunch of hippies in Pennsylvania. What do they know about Texas? But I decided to put the chemicals on the shelf and go organic. And it took my yard about almost 3 years to get back into balance.
Oh, wow.
And so I only use organic fertilizers and organic pesticides very rarely.
Okay, and I want to talk more about organic products and how we can, the kinds of things that you can do, and some about composting and more about taking care of your lawn. But we're going to take a little bit of a break, but we'll be right back with the Extension Hour that is here every Friday, 1 to 2, and we'll be right back. Family and community health programs provide science-based education designed to improve the overall health and wellness of individuals, families, and communities. Developed by experts and delivered locally, topics include child and adult health, nutrition, child care, financial management, passenger and community safety, and building strong families, all encouraging lifelong health and well-being for every person, every family, and every community. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Does your company have needs that can be met by an employee who is dependable, hardworking, enthusiastic, motivated, cooperative, respectful, and punctual? Conroe Independent School District Special Education Department can meet your needs by connecting you with potential employees that have been preparing for a lifetime of employment. We have numerous individuals seeking paid and unpaid work experiences. If your company is interested in seeing how we can meet your business needs, call Conroe ISD Special Education Department to find the best employees for you at 936-709-7671.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
Welcome back to the Extension Hour, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Services weekly podcast. So on Fridays, we're here worldwide, actually, on irlonestar.com. So sometimes my family, my daughter lives in upstate New York, and sometimes she'll listen in and tell me that she heard the radio program. But anybody in the world can listen at any time. And then also, the really cool thing about this, too, is that because it's a podcast, then you can go back and listen at another time. So if you're interested, and maybe somebody found out that the superstars, Linda and Bob, were on the show on July 26th.
We have to live up to this now.
That's right.
She just started a rumor.
And then you can go back and listen and know how it's done and know all about taking care of your lawn, because that's what we're talking about today. But also what we do at the Extension Hours, we talk about some of the things that are going on just in all of the Extension departments, because, often people are really, if they're familiar with the Master Gardeners, sometimes they get the idea that maybe that's like the only thing that we do, but we do have lots of other things. So the 4-H program as part of Extension, and we do family and community health, and then just agriculture in general. So horticulture is kind of part of agriculture, but it's very specific in terms of, horticulture. So, so I wanted to mention that one of the things that are happening with the Master Gardener Association is you guys are doing a great job with the weekly or the monthly series on Saturdays. I get really excited when I talk about some of the things.
Yeah, it's a nice program.
Yeah. So the next one coming up is August 10th. And so there's two presentations that are done. So one is 8 to 10, the other is 10:30 to 12:30. So this time on August 10th, the first session is going to be DIY, so do it yourself, composting and enriching soil. So that kind of goes along with what we're talking about today. And then the second session is honing in on your fall vegetable garden, because that's about the time getting ready for fall gardening. So perfect opportunity to learn more and expand a little bit on what we are talking about today. And then those series also do a really good job often of having hands-on activities. So, you can listen to what we're talking about today, but sometimes, particularly for visual learners or kinesthetic learners, it's really helpful if they see it and they do it. So that's a perfect opportunity for just the general public. So it's open to anybody to do those. If you're interested in signing up for those, you can call the Extension office. And we have a few different telephone numbers. So I always kind of hesitate when I say it, but 936-539-7825 is the one that I'm most familiar with. 24. Yeah. So it's got a menu system, and you can get to anybody that you need to, because they all, different numbers, but they all go to the same place.
But you really don't have to sign up for that
You can
August
just show
10th
up?
program. You
Okay.
can just show up.
Perfect.
Bring your money. I think we charge $5.
Yeah,
and
$5.
$8 for two.
Exactly. So, that helps cover expenses and some refreshments and that
And
kind of
Amy,
stuff.
you mentioned 4-H. You know, I was in 4-H when I was in elementary school.
Yeah?
And I think it's one of the greatest programs that Extension has. I mean, to me, it's fabulous because it teaches children a whole lot about not only agriculture, but a whole realm of things that are important. So,
I agree. Yeah, really important. Just life skills. It teaches them to be more productive adults.
Exactly.
So, by the way, with that, they have their annual achievement banquet coming up. So, on August 13th is when they celebrate the things that are happening in Extension. In 4-H. So all the kids that have done a really good job. And then new enrollments start on August 15th, so they can start signing up for the next year. Get ready to go for all of those kinds of things. All right. So we have been talking about lawn care. We mentioned, we kind of started talking a little bit about organic products. And Linda, you said you've been organic gardening for over 20 years now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that.
Well, a lot of people think it's more expensive than using chemicals, but I have found that not to be the case because you let nature take care of a lot of that. But the fertilizers are going to be a little more expensive than your chemical fertilizers per bag. But in the long run, it's less because you're doing a lot of damage to the soil using chemical fertilizers over and over and over. These are usually salt-based fertilizers, and they can build up in the soil. It also kills the soil microbes, the fungi and the bacteria that live in the soil, whereas if you use an organic product, those bacteria actually flourish under an organic program because they're the ones that convert the organic fertilizer into a form the plant can use. So they're very important to the soil, just like the microbes in your gut are important to your digestion. The microbes in the soil are important to the health of the plants that you're growing there.
Sometimes when people hear about bacteria and microbes, they think, ooh, I don't want any of that. Let's get rid of all of it.
That's
but
right.
that is not good for our guts. It's not good for our soil.
Right. You have to have some beneficial microbes.
So there's good ones and bad ones.
Right. And there are more good ones than there are bad ones. And sometimes the good ones eat the bad ones. So you need to really have a system that balances itself.
And it's relatively easy to promote the good ones so that they can flourish, like you're saying.
One more thing I want to say about organic fertilizers is because the bacteria have to break them down, you're not going to have a lot of nitrogen dissolving all at once and going into our groundwater and contaminating that. And then you say, well, gosh, I need some more nitrogen. Well, yeah, it's all gone. Those organic nitrogen supplies stay in the soil until the microbes break them down.
And one of the things, that Linda pointed out, the microbes in the soil are just not microbes. I mean, the soil also maintains, a good soil maintains the life of a whole cycle of living things. Earthworms. I always tell people that if you have earthworms in your yard, then you probably have really good soil because they're part of that whole life cycle.
Sure.
So it's a good indicator of if you use a lot of chemicals, you're not going to have very many earthworms, if any.
Right. So we were talking about how there's beneficial pest, which sounds a little bit like an oxymoron. If they're beneficial, they're probably not pest, but they maybe like kind of what we're talking about. Bacteria, people think, oh, bugs, I don't want a whole lot of extra bugs. But there are a lot of things that are really important and helpful.
There really are.
So what are the kinds of, what is the most beneficial pest that's out there?
Well, they're not pests if they're beneficial.
Exactly.
But one thing I want to say about the microbes in the soil and the earthworms, all this living stuff that's in your soil contributes to building soil structure. It opens up pores so that air can get into the soil because you should have about 25% air and 25% water, and the rest of it's going to be your minerals and so and your organic matter. So you need those microbes and civil engineers of the soil, which are the earthworms, to build a good soil structure.
Sure. Well, so another question, how do people know what their soil needs? I guess experience, you go, oh, it needs some of this or that. You can looking at it, but maybe not everybody can tell by looking at it. So what is something that you can do?
A&M has some great stuff.
Soil testing?
Soil test, yeah. A&M can test your soil and find out how much nitrogen it has, how much organic matter it has. You can download the form. Let me make sure I get the website right. It's soiltesting.tamu.edu. And that will you can go to the form, and it will give you how to take the soil sample and sending it in, and you do pay for it. There's different prices depending on what nutrients you want to have tested for. I think it's $12 for the regular sample, and some of the micronutrients, if you want to add those, I think it goes up to $14 there.
I think so. It's very inexpensive.
Yeah, it is.
In relation to what you're going to be saving.
Right. It's $18.
And there are some specific ways to gather that soil. I mean, sometimes people will bring in just a bag and say, hey, can I get this tested? So sometimes you have to send them back to get it a certain way.
Right, and this will the form will tell you exactly how to collect the sample. And so you have to read the instructions.
Oh, man.
I know, it's difficult.
Yep. So soil testing.tamu, so that's for Texas A&M University,
Right.
.edu is
Right.
short for education. So
Right.
I made a hotel reservation the other day, and I slur my words sometimes, and they kept sending it to the wrong address. So instead of TAMU, they were doing TANU. I was like, no.
Right.
Anyway, so, and then also the Master Gardeners have a website as well. So mcmga.com or .org?
.com.
Okay, .com. So that's another way to find information. You guys also have a great Facebook page that has lots of good information on that as well.
And the Master Gardener page, mcmga.com, has great articles. It's got a whole series of articles in there that people can find out information about plants, flowers, vegetable gardening, all kinds of things. So people may want to access that.
Sure, and as we mentioned earlier, we've got people in the phone room that are available to
yes.
answer questions. And do you do every Friday morning?
Except for First Friday.
Okay.
Yes, every Friday morning except for First.
So then you can get Superstar Linda Crum.
I actually had somebody call and ask for me this morning.
Oh, yeah?
Anyway, you were asking about beneficial insects. About 97% of the insects out there are beneficial or don't do any harm. We've only got about 3% that are the pest. And so it's the pests that replicate themselves or reproduce faster than the beneficials. So there's a little bit of lag time between getting aphids on your plant and when the ladybugs are going to show up, and some people aren't willing to wait. They want to go out there and spray. But you should always never spray preventatively. You should always be spraying for a problem, if there's a problem there.
Sure.
One of the things I've found for aphids is just spraying them with a hard burst of water and knocks them off, and then it takes them a week to get back. By that time, they're dead because they don't live that long.
No, it's like dropping you from a plane over New Jersey. You're not going to make it back.
That's a very good analogy, Linda. And you know what? I just lost my thought. So dropping you from a plane in New Jersey.
We're talking about beneficial insects. I mean, there are all kinds of beneficial insects. Ladybugs, the
Lacewing.
lacewings. It's interesting. I saw I had some milkweed, and it was covered with aphids. And I said, I got to go back and do something with it. And I forgot. And a week later, I went back, and there were no aphids. But I looked under every leaf, and under every leaf on those milkweeds was a lacewing larvae. And those lacewing larvae had eaten every aphid on that plant. So, I mean, to me, I didn't have to do anything. It took care of itself.
And sometimes there's a little beneficial wasp, and they're really tiny, little black wasps. They don't sting people. But what they do is they lay their eggs in the bodies of aphids. And so their young develop, and as they develop, they eat the aphid off the plant. So there are a lot of beneficials you may not see because they come and go, but the results are the same, dead aphids.
And speaking of beneficials, bees are something that we really need to pay attention to because we're seeing that colony collapse syndrome, and it's a serious problem now, and especially for Italian bees, not domestic bees. I think we have like 4,000 species of domestic bees in Texas. There's a lot of them anyway.
There's a
different
lot.
kinds of bees that do pollination, but a lot of the crops that we have are pollinated by honeybees. And they're not sure what has caused the collapse, but I think it has a lot to do with chemical fertilizers. So,
Or pesticides.
Or pesticides, yeah.
So speaking of bees, a few weeks ago we had some of the beekeepers on the show, and we talked all about bees and the importance of keeping them, and some tips for homeowners on beekeeping.
Sure.
So yeah, and then I remembered what I was going to say earlier. So I remember a master gardener telling me a really good pesticide is people, like just being in the garden, checking on your plants, that kind of thing.
That's
The
exactly
more
right.
it's tended to, the less they're going to. It doesn't make it a hospitable
Stink
environment
bugs,
for them.
for instance, you know, that get on my tomatoes or my other plants in my vegetable garden. I just have a little can of soapy water. And I just flick them off into soapy water. They die immediately.
Okay.
So, I mean, why would I want to spray my tomatoes with something that I'm going to probably eat?
Right.
Or my children are going to eat, or my wife's going to eat, when I can just flick them off. It's much simpler.
Okay, so speaking of flicking off, we got to flick one more time for a little break. But we'll be back with Linda Crum and Bob Daly, and we'll talk more about lawn care right after this.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our determination, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio. Broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Does volunteering at a nonprofit horse sanctuary sound wonderful? Or are you a veteran or a veteran spouse and think trying a peer group session through a local Horses and Heroes equine program might be worth trying? Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary, located in Grand Central Park by appointment only, is home to a growing number of rescued and donated horses. Visit our website at henryshomehorsesanctuary.org or check out our Facebook at Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary for more information.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Welcome back. This is the Extension Hour, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, all about our people, our programs, and our partnerships. And we have a triple play here today with two people who are people, programs, and partnerships, part of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. So two of our volunteer extraordinaires, Bob Daly and Linda Crum. We've been talking all about lawn care and taking care of organic products and composting and beneficial insects, not pests, and all kinds of things. Before we go on too much further, I want to mention one thing that we have going on in family and community health. So if your garden is growing really well, sometimes you want to can that produce so that you have it for later, because sometimes if you're doing a really good job, you're going to get more than you can eat in the summer. So canning it and preserving it is something that people are really interested in. So we have a canning class or canning workshop that's going to be on August 22nd. It'll be hands-on workshop, so we'll be able to, people will actually do some canning with us, take home a couple of products. So it's a full day, probably like 10 to 2. We're working on the exact details, but on August 22nd is when that will happen. So
I just wrote that down because I think my wife may want to attend that.
Good. Yeah, we have fun. So, because the Master Gardener building is the one we use. So it's actually the Tom Leroy Education Building.
It's a nice building.
It is a very nice building. It's a beautiful kitchen. So it's a wonderful for doing all kinds of workshops and events.
You know, one thing I wanted to mention about that building is, in fact, all of Extension across from the Lone Star Convention Center is that there are 9 rainwater harvesting tanks over there. And the interesting thing about rainwater is that when you have a thunderstorm, that the rain is infused. I think there's a chemical process, or an electronic process, something that infuses the rain with nitrogen. So rainwater collected can actually be beneficial to plants, and it's a good organic way of doing it. Sometimes municipal water has a lot of chlorine in it, and maybe other chemicals, and so it's really beneficial to the plant to use more natural water sources. So anyway,
Actually, that nitrogen that's in the atmosphere, what is it? 78% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. That nitrogen's held very tightly in a compound in the atmosphere by a triple bond, and it's very difficult to break that triple bond. But lightning is what does it. The lightning breaks that triple bond, releases the nitrogen into the rainwater that's falling to the ground. And so that's why things look so much better after a rain than just after city water irrigation, because it's actually gotten a little fertilizer.
Nice.
people say, "Oh, things look really green." Well, that's because it is more green.
Because of the nitrogen from, interesting, very interesting. And so, and you mentioned the facilities that we have there as well. So all of the gardens around are demonstrations. So you guys don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk and practice what you preach.
People in Montgomery County should go by and see that operation. It's
Actually, there's
fantastic.
a couple of little rain barrels that were done as an Eagle Scout project. One's in the floral gardens, and one is in the bee garden, I believe. And I've hooked the one up in the floral garden. It was a great project for an Eagle Scout, but he was not very artistic, and it was just an ugly blue barrel. I hope he's not listening today. But I said, I don't want that in my garden. No way. And Michael said, you have to have it in your garden. We have to display this product. And so one of the master gardeners, a team of master gardeners actually said, we'll paint it for you, Linda. What do you want? I said, I want dragonflies on it. And they did a terrific job.
They turned out beautiful.
And then I ordered a dripper for a bird bath. And so that rain barrel now feeds the bird bath, and it drips, because dripping water will attract birds faster than anything.
And Linda has a beautiful rose garden over there, and you should see it. People should really go by and look at it.
They're at the extension office, so one of the demonstration gardens so if roses is your thing, you've
Exactly.
got that.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So just so that people know, it's 9020 Airport Road, so 9020 Airport Road, as you mentioned, right across the street from the Lone Star Convention Center. That's one of the things that people might associate with. So 336, 3083, right there in Conroe. And folks can come by just like, anytime and tour the gardens.
Right.
But I also wanted to mention that we do have a fall plant sale coming up, so opportunity to buy plants. And then the open garden days that happen twice a year. So then the one for the fall is scheduled for November 2nd, and so that's 9:30 to 11:30. And that's just kind of like an open house, and several master gardeners are out there available to answer questions, to kind of show you what's happening. And as I mentioned, anytime, but open garden days are a really nice opportunity as well.
And that fall plant sale date was?
Is October 5th, and presentation starts at 8, and then the sale is 9 to noon. But get there early because things go fast.
There's a lot of people there. Yeah, it's a good place to buy good plants.
Yeah, because they've been either selected or tended to, or some of them grown from seed by the master gardeners. So, and they're things that we know that will grow well here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about taking care of the soil and composting and using organic products. And one of the things you mentioned, Linda, is using the least toxic products. So sometimes you might have to be a little bit non-organic or whatever, but the least toxins you can use, the better, right?
Right. You want to target your pest.
Okay.
For example, if you're having trouble with mosquito larvae growing, or a lot of mosquitoes around your house, you're probably growing your own mosquitoes with standing water. But one of the things you can use is BT, which is for Bacillus thuringiensis, and there's a strain called Israeliensis, and that specifically targets mosquito larvae. It doesn't kill your bees, it just goes to the mosquito larvae. So try to find a product that's specific for your pest, and a lot of times you can do that, and sometimes you can't. Just using insecticidal soap or neem oil or spinosad, these are very, these are organic products that are not very toxic to most of your wildlife.
Spinosad is used for fire ants. It is very effective for fire ants. And the Bacillus thuringiensis that Linda was talking about is cheap, it's inexpensive, it's easy to apply. You can buy it at the big box stores, I think Thuricide or something like that. Is that the name of
But
it?
they also come in those little donuts.
The little donuts, yeah.
That you, if
Mosquito dunks.
Mosquito dunks, yeah. I've got a rain barrel, and one of my cats has destroyed the screen that keeps the mosquitoes out. So I have to throw a mosquito dunk in there.
I do
every
that
now
as
and
well,
then.
yeah.
Does it, in the mosquito dunks, do those affect the soil or the groundwater, or
No,
because
not at
that's what
all.
you're saying. They're very.
You can put them in
it's
your
talking-
bird bath.
Okay.
And what it does, it kills the larvae. It doesn't kill the mature mosquitoes, but if it kills the larvae, it kills a whole generation of mosquitoes. So they're not breeding.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking personally, I've got this problem in my backyard where the condensation from the air conditioner just drips, and so I've got like this little puddle, and I just know that that's where the
Put a rain barrel in
There you
or
go.
just a catch basin.
Yep.
We're talking about spinosad. People who have dogs, if they give their dogs worm medicine, a heartworm medicine, then that's generally has spinosad in it because it's also systemic and it will kill fleas. So it's very gentle for pets. Pets use it. You can use it for pets, not cats, but dogs. You can use it for, and it's just a good kill the fleas in your yard if you have fleas. And neem oil is another thing that's really.
They put neem in toothpaste, so it's pretty non-toxic.
It's non-toxic, yeah.
And how do you spell that?
NEEM. It comes from a nut that was originally grown in India, but now it's grown in the United States.
It's a tree called the neem oil.
Okay.
The neem tree.
And OIL, so NEM, yeah, oil. Okay.
Right.
And what it does, it suffocates the insect. So it just closes the trachea. Insects breathe through their legs, or through the appendages that attach to the body, and it clogs that up, and the insect can't breathe, and it dies. So it's very simple and non-toxic.
Yep. So then it affects the pests that we don't want, maintains the beneficial pets, and we've got a better ecosystem.
Right, but I would use that as a last resort. Any of those things I'd use as a last resort.
Right. A hard water spray dislodges a lot of pests. Right. And putting those stink bugs in soapy water. I also do that practice, and I left the can inside my house one day, and my housekeeper came to clean, and she looked at it, she said, "Linda, what is this?" And I said, "Oh, don't bother that, Maria." That's so I took it back outside, but she was very leery of my soapy water full of stink bugs. It was full.
Okay. All right, so let's think, what else can we talk about in terms of lawn care? I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours, but...
I would just reiterate about man-made chemicals that, after World War I, all the ammunition companies they had a lot of nitrates left over, and they used those nitrates to make fertilizer because they didn't have anything else to do with it. And the Dust Bowl that occurred in the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma and some of the other Midwestern states was a direct result from bad soil practices. And one of those soil practices where people put a lot of nitrates in their soil and killed all the organisms in the soil. So when the wind came up, it just blew all that soil away. I mean, is that pretty close to what you see?
Yes. One thing I'd like to say while we're talking about chemical fertilizers, and some fertilizer companies, I won't mention any names, have a very good marketing tool. They sell weed and feed fertilizers. And that's one of my big pet peeves, and Extension's pet peeve. We never recommend that you use a weed and feed. The herbicide that is in that weed and feed is called atrazine. And atrazine will eventually kill your trees. We've had people come in and they say, my oak trees are just not doing well. And so I start asking questions. And usually they've used weed and feed fertilizers for years. And this atrazine actually burns the roots of the trees. So we never recommend using a weed feed, because another reason is you're supposed to feed the plant at a different time than you would use a herbicide.
Yeah.
There are other pre-emergent herbicides on the market if you want to use those besides atrazine. And so I would recommend that you call our office and get a recommendation.
Now, there is an alternative to having beautiful green grass, and you can do like they do in California and just paint it green. That also works.
Or you can do what I did and plant a prairie.
Or plant a prairie, yeah.
Or use ground covers. I do not have one blade of grass in my yard. I live in the woodlands, and my neighbor came over and he said, "You can do this in the woodlands?" And I said, "Read the covenants in our village," which is Panther Creek. It says no more than 40% of your yard can be grass. It doesn't say 40%. It has to be grass. It's the way you interpret it. And they've never come after me. And so he planted a ground cover. He got rid of his grass and planted ground cover. So
And I have
started a
mostly
trend.
wildflowers in my yard, so you've seen my yard.
Oh,
She
I
thinks
have.
it's quaint.
Well, you know, everybody
Rustic,
has their
rustic, I
their
think.
preferences, and that's the wonderful thing about the variety of opportunities that are available
Exactly.
when you are a gardener. And so, yeah, you guys have such great ideas. We're going to do one more little break. We're going to come back. We're going to leave with some last few tips from our experts here. And we will be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to the Extension Hour right here on Lone Star Radio. We'll be right back. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service is all about extending knowledge and providing solutions. We do that by using science-based information to create high-quality and relevant education for the people of Texas. More importantly, this outstanding education is delivered locally, right here in our county. We encourage lasting and effective change that helps our communities and our county thrive. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Don't miss Lone Star Community Radio on TV and YouTube. Our talk show and music shows are featured on Our City TV, Suddenlink Channel 12, and have their own YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to keep up with posted shows and comment on them below the video.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
And welcome back to the Extension Hour. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, our people, our programs, our partnerships. I've really talked you guys up, and you know what? You have lived up to the expectation because you were doing just such an awesome job. I'm just like very in awe of the information that you guys have to share. So I want to mention one more thing before it gets away with me from me. And I know we've been talking a little bit about using chemicals and that kind of thing. And the people that do use chemicals, there are some that are controlled and they have to have a license, and then they have to have continuing education to be able to continue to maintain that license. And so one of the things that people are often interested in is our grounds maintenance conference, which has some CEU hours available for that. So I just want to mention that that is scheduled for October 17th. So that will be coming up this fall. So anyone who's interested in that, make sure you mark your calendar.
What's the date again?
October 17th. It's probably a Thursday, but I didn't get the exact date. But yeah,
the CEU?
October. Yep. I don't know how many CEUs it has, but it offers several because it's a full day of lessons and all the education, which is what we're all about. We're here to educate. So just a few last thoughts in educating. Linda, you said you have a pet peeve.
I
Volcanoes,
do.
tree
As I
volcanoes.
drive down the street, sometimes I see these trees that have what I call mulch volcanoes, where the mulch is piled up against the trunk of the tree, so sometimes 12 to 18 inches. And I just feel so badly for that tree because it's dying a very slow death. People don't realize that this is very detrimental to trees. It keeps the bark moist, and when you keep a bark moist, it's soft, and insects penetrate that, and pretty soon you're going to have a tree that if it's not dead, it's not going to look so good.
Sure.
So keep the mulch. You should be able to see the root flare of the tree, which is, the tree should not look like a telephone pole sitting in mulch. It should look like it flares out at the bottom where the roots start, and that should be above the mulch. So
Make it look
if
more
you're,
like a donut than a volcano.
you can put mulch around trees, but keep it at least 12 inches away from the bark of the tree, because it's very, very detrimental to the health of the tree.
I've seen trees killed by that, just rings around the tree, and that'll kill the tree.
I don't know who started that, but
The same ones that started doing the crepe murder?
yes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Probably.
So, Bob, what are some last thoughts that you'd like to share with people today?
One of the things, I'm real concerned about water, and water is one of my pet peeves. But, Linda and I were talking earlier about the water holding capacity of soil with organic material in it. I know that soil with maybe 5% organic material, a cubic foot of soil, can hold up to 3 quarts or maybe more of water. So if your yard is, let's say, 4,000 square feet, which is 4,000 cubic feet, it can hold 12,000 quarts of water, which is 3,000 gallons of water.
Wow.
Which is significant. That means that's water you don't have to use on your lawn. That's water you don't have to pay for. That's, rainwater it could be. So I think that's one of my pet peeves, that people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So adding compost or organic material to your lawns is great. And the other thing about, people say, well, how much should I lay? I put a 1/2 inch of compost on my lawn, just put little piles out and rake it out in a 1/2 inch. And if you go to some of the compost dealerships, they can figure out how much you need and have it delivered. So it's not a big deal, but it really makes a difference.
Or if you come by the extension office, we've got a page that has a formula and some samples of 4,000 square feet. You add this much compost for 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, whatever you want to do.
And we mentioned the soil testing earlier, and you can go online and find information, soiltesting.tamu.edu. But other than that, we also have them at the extension office, so you can stop by and pick them up. Bob carries them in his truck. He just passes them out like candy.
Right, yeah, that's
Anybody,
true.
you want a soil testing form? Here you go. And so once you get the results from the soil testing form, you can bring those to the extension office as well, and you guys can help people interpret what does this mean.
And one of the things, I take samples from lawns. People have problems with their lawns, and I'll take a core sample and bring it into Extension, where we have a microscope over there, and Mike or somebody else can look at it, or myself, and see if it has a fungal infection in it, and we can tell that. So if people need that service, they can contact me or Linda or anybody, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, really great information that you guys you have. Like I said, you are a wealth of knowledge, and we love having the Master Gardeners on the radio show.
Thank you.
And generally we try to have the Master Gardeners at least once a month. Here on the Extension Hour, because you guys are a really important part of what we do in our outreach. So we're all about helping Texans make their lives better and helping the environment. When you can walk out your front door and feel good about how your lawn looks because of the.
We appreciate
things that you
everything
learn.
A&M is doing in Extension service, and you guys.
Thanks.
I mean, y'all are doing a great service to the public.
Well, we love what we do. Like I said, it's all about helping Texans make their lives better, and so there's just so many ways that we can do that. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed too, though, because there's like so much we can do and so much that I want to do.
Right.
It's hard to do it all. So just one phone call at a time, one presentation at a time, try to do our best. So again, if anybody has any questions or wants more information, certainly you can pick up the phone and give us a call, 936-539-7825. Or we have several social media platforms. We have Facebook pages generally for Extension. We have one for Family and Community Health, one for Master Gardeners. We have one for 4-H. We have a website where we have information about just Montgomery County, and then there's several other websites that the state extension, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension runs. So lots of opportunities to get lots of information. So if you want to know, we probably can help you find an answer to it.
And we have demonstration gardens there on site. People can come and see how we grow vegetables. And
Earthkind, Texas Earthkind.
All right. So thank you guys for being here today. We'll be back next week with more great information. Actually, we're going to skip next week, and then we'll be back the week after that. But we'll be here. We're here on Fridays.
Thanks, Amy.
All right. Take care.